let's get you on board. I've always been a gut player, for better or for worse.
You are a Christian conservative.
That's correct. 3 words. And it drives them so crazy. I say God is real. And I find no contradiction between my Christian worldview and my political philosophy.
All right, guys, it is September 15th, 2025. I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. You know where we're streaming. Thank you for subscribing. Welcome to all the new viewers. Awful lot of views over the weekend for all the wrong reasons. But welcome to everybody. And for those of you that have been with us for a long time, you know that my general position on this show is to do it in as humorful and sarcastic and silly a way as possible, and I'm not exactly sure how that's going to go today or for the foreseeable future, because there's just so much here. Obviously, it's deeply personal to me. It's deeply personal to many of you guys, whether you met Charlie once or went to a Turning Point thing, or you just watched him forever. You know, that cold open that we just showed right there. That I think was from 2018, beginning of 2018. We had just met a few weeks before in 2017. We were going through all of our old videos with Charlie over the weekend, and we'll be releasing certain behind the scenes things and some other stuff. You know, it's been just like an unbelievably difficult couple of days for every decent person in the country, because it does not matter what your politics are. And I'm not going to keep saying that over and over, because it's obvious, it's baked in. The only thing that makes a functioning society work, like a free society work, is if you don't kill each other over words. It's like the most lowest common denominator stuff, right? It's bottom of the barrel stuff, obvious. So to keep having to qualify, all these people that are qualifying everything, well, I didn't agree with everything you said, I didn't like everything you said, but you shouldn't be killed. It's like, yeah. So, you know, look, there's also, I just, a couple personal things real quick, then we'll get to it. You know, I was in New York City for, really, I was going for the 24th anniversary of 9/11. And I was at the Cantor Fitzgerald event where they had 4 floors of Tower 1 and they lost over 600 employees. And, you know, I was in New York City during 9/11. My dad saw the plane hit. You've heard a lot of the stories. But I was going for that. So I was already going for a somewhat somber thing. And then to be there on 9/11 down at ground zero to the backdrop of the murder of Charlie, in some way it made 9/11 seem a little small, which I know is a complete thing. I'm just being as honest and transparent as I can. It felt like a little small that day. And I think everyone had it. And even at the Cantor Fitzgerald Memorial, I was at the 9/11 Memorial Museum. Even there, Howard Lutnick, who was running Cantor Fitzgerald, who lost his brother that day and lost 600 colleagues and coworkers, the only reason he survived was because it was his son's first day of kindergarten and he was taking him to school. Even he talked about Charlie during the memorial. Like, it was just powerful. And then, you know, the next day, because I was in New York, I ended up doing all these. I was all over Fox and everything. And I'm just telling you this, like, in a most, like, personal way I can say it. It's been an extremely weird thing here. I probably could have used some better adjectives there, to have to talk about all of this as it's happening with someone that I know, someone that I grew up in this world with. One of the things that I'm most amazed by, actually going into the comments over the last couple of days on our videos, is how many of you are saying that I actually introduced you to Charlie, because what brought us together was I was on the left and he was on the right. So all of these people that were on the left that were kind of waking up like me, they didn't know Charlie, just the way I didn't know Charlie. And then because Charlie and I started talking, we actually ended up introducing thousands, who knows how many people, to Charlie. And anyway, it's just been very weird having to talk about this stuff and do some fighting. We'll get into my Piers Morgan's appearance. And then I was on BBC and they're asking me about gun control and just all of the stuff. But my commitment to you is that I will consistently try to be a little bit better. That's my only takeaway of this so far. Like, my only clean takeaway is that we just all have to be a little bit better to whatever extent we can. So we're going to dive in, and obviously the show will be a bit more on the shooter himself, a little bit about Charlie's legacy, some of the political and media fallout and everything else. And I will try to say something funny somewhere around the 45-minute mark. We will see. But let's start with Real Time with Bill Maher, because as you know, Bill, who's been, although perhaps wrong on some of his political conclusions, has been right about free speech, of course, and exchanging ideas and breaking bread with people you don't like going to the White House, as Bill did, 4 or 5 months ago, and talking to Trump, who he's been highly critical of, and Trump has been highly critical of him. He had Ben Shapiro on. I think that was a last-minute booking to talk about all of this, and they got into what I think is, from a media perspective, the most important part, or maybe even a full cultural perspective, which is this thing that we have done, that I think I've been one of the leaders on pushing back about, which is we cannot call all of our political opponents the worst things in the world. If you call Trump Hitler and you call his supporters Nazis or relentlessly, and you do it over and over and over again, literally for years, then would someone not take it into their mind to think, maybe I can stop Hitler? So they talked about that.
Okay. Thank you for coming on a somewhat difficult week. No, he had a rough week, and this has to stop too. He went out to dinner. I wouldn't have done that. In Washington, D.C., okay, and people started to gather around him, and they were chanting, "You're the Hitler of our time." Okay, first of all, assholes, he's not Hitler, okay? An insult to everybody in the Holocaust to begin with. Second of all, calling somebody Hitler makes it a lot easier to justify things like assassination. Let's put a load of that away, shall we? And also, no, I'm not.
All right, so we'll get to some of the clips of him talking to Ben in just a second, but I wanted to start with that because it's interesting if you listen to the audience when Bill's talking to his own people. Right now, a lot of them, they're Bill Maher style liberals, so they're not the complete wackadoodle progressives. But to say to an audience, stop calling him Hitler, like my guess is Bill's probably done it a little bit, right? And that's not really the point. Like everyone can use language loosely, or also, I mean, that's the whole point of comedy, right? Like you're trying to get as close to the line as possible, and hopefully you don't trip over it and say something that's really stupid. But getting to that line, that's where the funny part is, right? But I think him just saying that, in and of itself, it's good to hear, right? It is good to hear maybe the last sane guy on the left say no more of this stuff, because it seeds the ground, right? It's just like dropping seeds into the ground. I'm reading a book with the kids now at night about how an acorn gets to the ground and then becomes a tree. And it's like, that's what it is. Like you keep doing this over and over. Well, that acorn's gonna fall, right? And then it's going to start growing, it's going to disintegrate and start growing, and it'll be watered. And then everyone will think that these people really are Nazis and Hitler. And then what would be the moral thing to do if you thought that someone truly was the worst of all things? That's the endless debate, right? Like people have had this for years and years and years. Would you go back and kill baby Hitler? Anyway, here's Maher talking about how the Democrats really have gotten weak when it comes to debating ideas, and when you will not sit down with someone and debate, just as Charlie and I have done for so many years, that then it starts looking pretty easy just to kill somebody.
But it is kind of interesting that this guy was shot, and he's been on our show, been on my podcast. I talk to him, I like to him, I like everybody. I talk to everybody. I think I'm glad I took that approach. But he was shot under a banner that said, "Prove me wrong," because he was a debater. And too many people think the way to do that, to prove you wrong, is to just eliminate you from talking altogether. So the people who mocked his death or justified it, I think you're gross, I have no use for you. The people who are saying now we're at war, I have no use for you. So my first question, true or false? I think the real war is not between left or right. It's for the people it's between the people on both sides who want a war and the people who don't.
Okay, so of course Bill is correct that if you do this endlessly, you might start killing people. Now, I've said for a long time the left-right war is not really the thing either. My argument really has been it's for people who want sort of control, like centralized control, versus a more libertarian attitude. I don't mean card-carrying member of the Libertarian Party. But do you want the government really to tell you exactly how to live, or do you want to put that more in the power of the people? People can say that's a liberal conservative argument or left-right argument or whatever, but let's just put that aside for a second. The point here is that Charlie just wanted to debate. I remembered this over the weekend, that one time Charlie and I did an event. I don't remember what school it was at. But as we were walking out, they would throw things at us and pull fire alarms and call in bomb threats and have noisemakers and all of this stuff. But somebody threw a cup of coffee, like hot coffee at us, and it mostly hit me. And I was usually dressed like this, like with the button down and a jacket. It mostly hit me and a little bit splashed on him. And I turned to Charlie and I was like, well, I'm glad that's not acid. And he goes, Dave, that's why I wear a t-shirt, meaning like it ruined my jacket, but he just wears a t-shirt. Like we just knew that these weird things were gonna happen. Okay, so now I wanna get into it where Ben jumps in, because they talk about sort of the difference between when a Democrat or someone on the left does something bad versus the other way around.
The reality is that as somebody who receives an inordinate amount of death threats, and I know the kind of death threats that Charlie was getting, you can break down the death threats and where they are coming from. And if we are not politically correct, then we understand that if there's a shooting at a synagogue, it is very likely to be either a white supremacist or a radical Muslim. If it is a shooting of a Republican politician, it is very likely to be a trans Antifa Marxist shooter.
That is just not true. We don't know what this kid is.
We do know this kid was of the left. We do know that.
We do know what?
That this kid was of the political left. That is according to contemporaneous reporting from The Guardian as well as Tablet Magazine today.
It's 2 days out. We don't know Ben.
But
we don't know They never do. The internet is undefeated in getting it wrong to begin with.
It's not about the internet. That's about the actual reporting by mainstream accepted. The Guardian is not a right-wing news outlet. The thing that all these groups have in common is a structure, a philosophical structure that says there is a system that is targeting me. That system is a system of power, and it is deadly to me. Therefore, I am excused in using violence against that system. That's the thing all of these movements have in common. And that we need a cognitive behavioral therapy in our politics that says that is not true. That if I say a man is not a woman, that is not a genocidal threat to you. That if you say that you have a differential policy on immigration, that is not a threat to me. That if you say that you believe that Western civilization is superior to radical Islam, that is not a threat to me. And again, I don't think that those permission structures are equally distributed across the political spectrum.
Right. That's the point. Okay, so first off, everything Ben said there was right. We'll have more on the shooter himself in just a minute, and Ben was correct on that. I understand Bill's inclination, which is we need to find out more information and blah, blah, blah. Like, that is good. In a time of internet when shit just flies and rumors fly and everyone gets caught retweeting something that's not true, and also people wait to see if it fits their narrative before they decide to promote it or not. I understand Bill's inclination. But yes, in fact, it does turn out that this kid was living with a trans, well, it sounds like partner or lover or something. Anyway, we'll get to some of that. But Ben's point there also, I think, really exposes why this intersectional monster that we've been talking about for so long is so dangerous. How is it that you have like Queers for Palestine? How does that actually work? You take the gender queer radicals and you combine them with the oppression, the perceived oppression of the Palestinians. And then they all are out there together with their grievance. But their grievance, as Ben talks about, is really just to destroy the system, right? The queers never show up in Palestine because if they did, they would be killed. So it's a short-term game that a bunch of groups with really horrific competing interests are all playing. This is the Islamist Marxist, the red-green alliance, right? And that is the thing that we are all, if you believe in Western values, you don't have to be a perfect conservative. Charlie and I still had different philosophical views and political conclusions and all of those things. But if you believe in America as a place of pluralism and freedom and all of those things and individual rights, et cetera, then you have to stand up for people's ability to be a little bit different, but also call out this nonsense. And that's what Ben, I think, was doing quite effectively there. So let's figure out a little bit more about the shooter on the other side, but first, PDS debt.
The system isn't broken, it's rigged. And if you're buried in debt, that's exactly how they want it. Big banks profit when you're desperate. Creditors win when you lose, but you don't have to play their game. That's where PDS debt comes in. They've helped hundreds of thousands of people break free from credit cards, personal loans, collections, and medical bills. PDS goes beyond the numbers. They take time to understand your unique financial situation and build a personalized plan designed just for you. There's no minimum credit card score required. Their goal is simple: help you save more, pay off your debt faster, and put money back where it belongs, in your pocket. That's why PDS Debt is rated A+ by the Better Business Bureau with thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and a 5-star rating on Trustpilot. And here's the best part. You're just 60 seconds away from being debt-free. Get your free assessment and find the best option for you right now at pdsdebt.com/Rubin. That's pdsdebt.com/Rubin. Take control of your money. Take control of your future. Do it today with PDS Debt.
Okay, so Ben and Bill were obviously agreeing largely on that we have to be able to speak. We should not use these over-the-top pejoratives to label an entire group because crazy people might get involved. The pushback was a little bit about, okay, how much do we know about this kid? And Bill didn't seem to want to go too far. However, it does turn out that Ben was correct. We've got some info here. This is from Disclosed TV. Just in, FBI released photos of person of interest in connection with Charlie Kirk assassination, appeal to public for information. So obviously that was a few days ago. We then found out it was a young man by the name of Tyler Robinson, and this also from Disclosed TV. Just in, mugshots released of Tyler Robinson, Charlie Kirk's assassin. Now a bit more from ABC News. Tyler Robinson, the man suspected of killing conservative activist Charlie Kirk during a campus event at a Utah university, had eluded authorities for more than a day. However, after his father recognized him from photographs distributed by authorities, officials say a series of events ultimately led to the 22-year-old Robinson being taken into custody. Utah Governor Spencer Cox, a Republican, told ABC's This Week on Sunday morning that Robinson has not made any confessions and is not cooperating with authorities, but Cox added that people around him are cooperating. Cox was also asked about a Sunday New York Times report that alleged Robinson had communicated with others on the online messaging platform Discord after the shooting. The New York Times reported that Robinson had made jokes about being the alleged gunman. Cox replied that those conversations definitely were happening. Multiple law enforcement sources have told ABC News that the authorities are reviewing a Discord group chat between several people joking about how the shooter looked like Robinson, as first reported by the Times. The father then called a youth pastor who is also a U.S. Marshals Task Force, the prompter jumped here, task force officer. The officer advised the father to have Robinson stay in place. This information was then conveyed to the FBI. Cox thanked Robinson's family, who did the right thing. During the press conference, Cox said that when law enforcement identified Robinson, they also interviewed Robinson's roommate, who showed them a message between Robinson and his roommate. The content of these messages included messages affiliated with the contact Tyler stating a need to retrieve a rifle from a drop point, leaving the rifle in a bush. The messages also referred to engraving bullets and a mention of a scope and rifle being unique, authorities said. And before I even comment on any of that, then let's jump back to Utah Governor Spencer Cox verifying that Kirk's killer, Robinson, was in a relationship with a trans partner.
Well, some outlets are reporting that the suspect lived with a transgender partner. Is that accurate? And are investigators looking at this part of his life as a possible motivation?
Yes, definitely. And yes, I can confirm that. I know that has been reported and that the FBI has confirmed that as well, that the roommate was a romantic partner, a male transitioning to female. I can say that he has been very cooperative, this partner.
Okay, so first off, the partner, we'll have more on him in just a second. So he was a male transitioning to female in a relationship with Robinson, who is male. It all gets very confusing, but okay, let's leave that there. So this illustrates that Ben was correct on real time. So this is what Ben was saying on Friday. Bill didn't want to quite get there yet. This also, I think, illustrates something interesting where, you're going to hear all of this stuff. We're hearing it already, that Charlie hated trans people. He hated trans people. Now, first off, I personally never heard Charlie say anything, quite literally anything hateful about anyone. He treated people as individuals. I mean, this was what Charlie was always doing, was trying to take his religious values and apply them within the American political system. And Charlie did not want, just as I do not want, and I'm sure you do not want, children to be forced to have their genitals cut off or go through chemical castration or anything else. He didn't want the intentional confusion as it relates to pronouns. He didn't want teachers to be hiding that information from parents and all of those things. Now, I actually don't 100% know Charlie's opinion on, let's say, an adult. So now it's a 21-year-old who chooses to do whatever it is that they want to with their body. So do that stuff, but make that decision as an adult. My guess is, while Charlie would say it doesn't actually change your gender, which is true, he probably would have also said it's your right to do with your body what you want. So the idea that Charlie hated trans people, and just one other quick thing on this, the idea that the LGBT thing, that these things have anything to do with each other, is completely ridiculous. I never use that phrase, and I'm going to try not to, and I hope other people will stop. The T has nothing to do with the L's and the G's and the B's, and it's important to understand that. So now a bit more about the partner here. This is from Benny Johnson, breaking. A family member of Lance Twiggs, who was the transgender boyfriend of Charlie Kirk's assassin, Tyler Robinson, says the family cut ties with Twiggs due to his hostility towards anyone supporting conservative or Christian values, and confirmed Robinson lived with him. Okay, so again, it's a little confusing. Connor, just leave the image for a second. So that's Robinson, obviously. Then the other one is Twiggs, who was a male transitioning to female. Okay. Robinson's family, which it now turns out apparently was just kind of for lack of a better term, a good Christian family. Parents were married. Seems like things were basically right there. They then cut off relations with Twiggs because it sounds like it was radicalizing their son, or at least, at the very least, he was not being very kind to them. So we are finding out a little bit more. We're gonna have a chilling tweet from Charlie in just a second, but first, Tax Network USA.
If you're stressed about back taxes, maybe you missed the April deadline or your books are a mess, don't wait. The IRS is cracking down and penalties add up fast. 5% per month, up to 25% just for not filing. But there's help. Tax Network USA can take the burden off your shoulders and stop the spiral before it gets worse. They've helped thousands of Americans, employees, small business owners, even people who haven't filed in years. Messy books, no problem. They've seen it all and they know exactly how to clean it up. With direct access to powerful IRS programs and expert negotiators on your side, Tax Network USA knows how to win. You'll start with a free consultation, and if you qualify, they may even be able to reduce or eliminate what you owe. They'll also help protect you from wage garnishments and bank levies. So don't wait for the next IRS letter to show up in your mailbox. Take action now. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Dave to talk to a real expert at Tax Network USA. That's 1-800-958-1000 or tnusa.com/Dave. Take the pressure off and let Tax Network USA handle your tax issues.
All right, so let me be really, really, really clear about one thing here, which is that I don't blame anyone for the shooting specifically, other than the person who pulled the trigger. But of course, that doesn't mean that the culture around everything shouldn't be looked at, right? That's what we started at the top. If you keep calling Trump Hitler and his supporters Nazis, someone might get involved. Now, that doesn't mean, unless someone says go ahead and pull the trigger, it doesn't mean we should be chilling free speech. But we should, I guess it would be incumbent upon any of us, especially those who do something like what I do for a living, to be perhaps a little more thoughtful. I think that's a fair way to put it. Listen to this tweet from Charlie. This is from, what's the date on this? We'll check the date in just a second. But this is from a few months ago. Assassination culture is spreading on the left. 48% of liberals say it would be at least somewhat justified to murder Elon Musk. 55% said the same about Donald Trump. In California, activists are naming ballot measures after Luigi Mangione. The left is being whipped up into a violent frenzy. Any setback, whether losing an election or losing a court case, justifies a maximally violent response. This is the natural outgrowth of left-wing protest culture tolerating violence and mayhem for years on end. The cowardice of local prosecutors and school officials has turned the left into a ticking time bomb. Okay, so that's basically exactly the same thing that Ben said. If you're in everything for the revolution, if you think someone says America's fundamentally good and you think that that's an attack on you, or boys and girls are fundamentally different, you think that's an attack on you, everything is worth exacerbating. So that tweet, that very chilling tweet about assassination culture from Charlie, was just from this past April. But okay, so Ben and Charlie are making the exact same point. I think you guys understand what that is. They constantly, right? Like, how many people defended Luigi Mangione? The kid shot a healthcare executive in the middle of Times Square because he had his frustrations with healthcare. Now, nobody is saying the healthcare system is perfect, but once we say, okay, well, a little vigilante justice is okay. You think there's a problem with healthcare? I can just shoot a CEO. Oh, you don't like the way people are talking about trans issues, I can just go ahead and shoot Charlie. Everyone on every which side. I mean, this is the danger of what the left has done, and it is not an equal. I know they desperately right now want to make it seem like people on the right do the same thing, that they gin up everybody to start thinking that they should shoot people, but it is simply not true. It is not a 50-50 equation. And to prove that, I was a little hesitant when we were going through the run through this morning about this, because there are so many videos of usually mostly young people celebrating Charlie's death, and it's a lot of TikTok and dancing and all sorts of craziness. And I don't think it means that it's everyone on the left. But over the last couple of years, as we've watched all of the quote unquote sane liberals, so the Tulsis and the Rogans and the Musks and everybody else, as they've left, when I always say the inmates are running the asylum, well, yeah, the inmates are running the asylum.
I just wanted to play a bit of music to commemorate the now ended life of Charlie Kirk. And I hope you'll all join me in this meaningful moment.
Charlie Kirk. Nothing to do with Charlie Kirk.
I would say pour one out for Kirky boy, but I don't waste good beer on little bitches.
I haven't posted on TikTok in a long time, but I'm gonna now because rest in peace, bozo!
Charlie Kirk just got put down like a dog in Utah, and I could not be happier. Praise be.
I do not, and I will not, ever feel bad when bad people get what they deserve.
I'm not sorry for not mourning Charlie Kirk's death. It is insane to...
I want to dedicate this next one to an absolute piece of a human being. The pronouns was, were.
Freaking Palestinian flag in the back, of course. Look, nobody should go after any of these people. Obviously, I've said it again, and we're going to have to stop saying it. Like, I personally do not endorse violence. I know people watching this do not endorse violence. And again, I was a little hesitant on doing that segment because believe me, there's way more, and there are plenty that are way worse than that, but these are random people. They all have that same affect, and they all kind of look the same, and you could sort of see how it's connected to the gender thing and all of that stuff. But try to imagine, to prove the asymmetry here, I don't even know who the equivalent of Charlie on the left was. Like, they don't have great communication. There's no, I don't know anyone. Please put it in the comments if you can think of somebody on the left who was going to college campuses to thoughtfully explain themselves and welcome conservatives to then debate them. Like, there's nobody. But if that magical person had existed and then they were assassinated, do you think conservatives, it's not even conservatives, do you think most of us, whatever we all are now, and the younger versions of all of us would be putting up those videos celebrating it? Like, there is a fundamental difference here. And to illustrate how the system, these people, everything is about the system. Everything is always about the revolution. What's the line that James Lindsay uses about this? The issue is never the issue. The issue is always the revolution. Meaning whatever happens, there's always the new thing. So you have to put up a black star for this on your Instagram, and whatever the new thing is, it's BLM today and George Floyd, and then they just move it on to the new thing, and then it's COVID, you better wear a mask or you're gonna kill everybody. Like, there's always a thing, but the issue is always the revolution. At the end, how do they destroy the system a little bit more? So now I wanna show you this, because this is just to show how wokeness has infected the institutions. It starts by breaking the brains of young people, and then it breaks the institutions. This is absolutely wild. So the incoming president of Oxford Union is the most prestigious debate society at Oxford, all the way across the pond, literally in the world. I was there, 8 months ago, and I'm very proud to say that I won my debate. You can see me standing there in front of my Muslim tribunal. And I'll tell you a bit more about some of the behind the scenes there. But look at this. This is from the incoming president of the Oxford Union, which is all about debate. George Aberoni. Charlie Kirk got shot, let's fucking go, with the prayer emoji, all in caps, scoreboard F in. And there were a couple other statements he made. Now before we have more on him, I want to show you so he's the incoming president of Oxford Union. So when I was there just a few months ago, defending free speech, defending the right to be offended, making a point about how we cannot allow this to go to the people who would choose to be violent, he was not the president of the time. Let me just show you a small portion of that speech, and then we'll have more on him. Oh, we're just doing an image. Okay, actually, we'll do the video tomorrow. Now, interestingly, since we didn't show you the video and just the image, I will tell you that when we were there, while I was honored to be there, and I'm very glad that I did it, and I'm really proud that we won our defense of free speech, I have to say the place itself was so obviously fallen to the woke ideas. There was a massive trans flag in the library at Oxford. That was the only flag that was there. The amount of young people, including the girl who's behind me in that picture, who was she told me she was a Pakistani immigrant, first generation were her parents, and that all she votes for is to free Palestine. It had been so infected, that place, and now the president of Oxford Union, George Aberoni, is clearly fine with political violence. As a matter of fact, here's a throwback video of him speaking at Oxford Union talking about just that.
To effectively create change in the world we desire. And Side Prop will argue that at times there is simply nothing else that can be required other than violent retaliation. And this is a view I wholeheartedly agree with. The view that some institutions are too broken, too aggressive, too oppressive to be reformed. Like cancers of our society, they must and they should be taken down by any means necessary.
By any means necessary. Now, again, this gets exactly to Ben's point. If you think that the system is evil and oppressive, what would you do to fix the system, or at least burn down the system? Well, he told you right there, by any means necessary. Well, that includes the means that Tyler Robinson just took, 5 days ago. So if the system is oppressive enough, and who gets to decide if the system's oppressive enough? Well, it's always these guys. So this is very, very dangerous, that even though, in my estimation, Oxford is no longer what it was completely infected, that they could consider putting someone who is for violence. He celebrated the murder. He's going to try to be the president of the most important free speech society on planet Earth, and he was glad when someone was killed over their speech. Do you understand why this cannot be allowed to happen if Oxford has any shred of decency left, which I'm not sure that it does? Listen to this from GBN. Oxford Union president-elect launches new attack on Charlie Kirk as he says, "My words were no less insensitive than his." Except Charlie Kirk never once celebrated the death of anyone. Charlie Kirk never said, "by any means necessary," to accomplish his political goals. But this is the asymmetry of these people. Now, there's a bit more on this story. This is from Chris Rose, who's an ex-commentator. Breaking: University College Oxford will not expel George Aberoni. They're allowing their reputation to be tarnished by keeping someone who has shown themselves to be a dangerous, overgrown child. Shocking decision by Labor peer. Okay, so I can't say I'm surprised here, actually, because I'm telling you, the place had really become infested with all of the wrong ideas. But it's important noting, when you look at how did this all happen? How did we radicalize all these people? And oh my God, they're doing this on Discord and everything else. Well, they're also now literally going to places like Oxford, which should be perhaps the most elite university on the planet, and being encouraged, or having a president of the debate society who says you can kill people over words. Well, it's also happening back here in our country. This is wild. These are some tweets by Jay Perk. This is incredible, who is the director of race and equity at UCLA. And this is post Charlie dying. This is not tweets, sorry. These are what he posted on Blue Sky. "You can't force people to mourn someone who hated us, no matter how he died." Okay, well, that actually is true. You can't force anyone to mourn anyone, that's true. "It is okay to be happy when someone who hated you and called for your people's death dies, even if they are murdered." Well, I would say that, look, again, he can say these things. It's about what his job is, and also he's wrong. Charlie didn't hate anyone, and I have no instance of Charlie calling anyone for anyone's death. And then he retweeted somebody who said he, meaning Charlie, was their Rush Limbaugh replacement. He wrote, "Yup, good riddance, both." So this is the director of equity, diversity, and inclusion at UCLA, and he is clearly celebrating the death of somebody he doesn't like. He's entitled to his opinion, but UCLA as an institution, you know, when we talk about cancel culture, has to decide, do you want this person being a representative of your institution? Well, when these tweets got exposed, listen to this from Corey DeAngelis, breaking, UCLA just took down their entire webpage for their Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion after I exposed their race and equity director's disgusting comments about Charlie Kirk's assassination. But the internet is forever. And as you can see, there he is, this Jonathan Perkins guy. I think I might have said the wrong name at the top. I was referencing the guy who tweeted it. It gets even weirder when you see some of these responses. So remember, so someone like this who's celebrating Charlie's death, he works at the DEI actually, department at UCLA. Well, it makes you wonder, what type of people did he bring in there? What culture did he bring in there? And then young people go to these schools and are taught all of these horrible things, and they're told that system is against them and that, you know, political violence kind of is okay. That is it. This is a wild video. So TMZ was live on air when it was reported that Charlie Kirk died, and some of their employees started cheering in response, which they then had to slightly walk back, but you can see what happened here very clearly.
Janet, go to, have somebody look at the Fox. Trump just posted that Charlie Kirk is dead.
All right, so is this ready to pull the trigger? We can get Trump cut in a second.
Okay, so they're pretending it had something to do with the car chase. Obviously, that's just not true. What's the guy, TMZ guy's name? Does anyone remember his name? The Howard something? Harvey something, whatever it is. Like, you could see he's affected by it, but like, but this is what wokeness is. You bring these people into your institution. Imagine, look, I largely know my employees' political opinions, but I have no doubt that we disagree on some things and whatever else. But imagine if I had someone working in my system, in my company, who would cheer Charlie's death. Like, just imagine how else that might affect things around here. So Harvey better think about employing some of those people. Here is a supercut of media and political people on the left just with terrible, terrible takes on Charlie's death.
We don't know if this was a supporter shooting their gun off in celebration, or so we have no idea about this. But following up on what was just said, he's been one of the most divisive, especially divisive younger figures in this, who is constantly sort of pushing this sort of hate speech or sort of aimed at certain groups. And I always go back to hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which then lead to hateful actions.
What I do know for sure is that, you know, Charlie was someone who once said, guns save lives after a school shooting. Charlie was someone who was willing to debate and downplay the death of George Floyd in the hands of Minneapolis police.
I think he called him a scumbag.
You know that people, especially me, having done criminal defense, most offenses like this were personal.
Do you know Charlie Kirk?
Yeah, I do.
And what do you think of what happened to him?
You know, sometimes revenge is a dish best served cold. I hate to celebrate someone's death, but when you talk about guns' rights and you talk about how much the Second Amendment matters to you and it impacts you, like, what do you expect, you know? Sympathies to his family, but this is why we need gun control.
One of my friends said on social media, he died in a world that he wanted.
Yeah, he said it himself, right?
You would think that our president will at least make an attempt to bring us together, but he didn't. President Obama did. President Biden did. Presidents Bush and Clinton did. President Trump did not. Instead, he blamed Democrats for their rhetoric.
Right. There's so much disgusting stuff, and obviously it's going to be an endless, like, slow drip of it that comes out. First off, they all lie about Charlie's positions. Also, this notion that Charlie said something. There's a quote of Charlie's where he said that some gun deaths are, in essence, are going to be the sort of offshoot result of having people have guns. Meaning, if you defend the Second Amendment, then is it possible that some people, innocent people, are going to be killed because of guns? But the obvious answer is yes. You know, one of the things that doesn't mean we shouldn't have the Second Amendment. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to defend your family and your property and your way of life, right? The founders understood that. What Charlie was saying was, yes, there's no perfect system. So if to have a Second Amendment, it is baked in that some bad things are going to happen. So all these people are like, see, and then it happened to him. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't have the Second Amendment. He actually was explaining something in a very deep way. It's a very true thing to say that bad things are going to happen, right? Versus the left, which is like, oh, okay, so what would be the easiest thing to say? Well, take away the guns and then there'll be no violence. And it's like, no, that is just it's just low level, what I always say. It's like the thin veneer, you peel it, and then there's either something very nasty there or just something that hasn't really been thought out. Now listen to these two headlines. Because we had to double check to even just confirm that they weren't AI written. Like, these are insane. First one's from Reuters. Charlie Kirk's rhetoric often involved anti-immigration and anti-LGBTQ remarks, and his views often aligned with far-right elements of the Republican Party. His rhetoric engendered strong feelings. Well, it did engender strong feelings because he was talking about things that were important to talk about. Anti-immigration. He wasn't anti-immigration. He was anti-illegal immigration. And as for the LGBT stuff, again, this is where I think the L's and the G's and the B's, you better freaking separate from the T's, because these things have nothing to do with each other. Did Charlie personally have a religious view of traditional marriage? He did. Was he actively campaigning to stop gays from getting married? Not only no, he was welcoming, there are many videos of it, he was welcoming young gays into the Turning Point movement, into the Wide Tent America movement. You're allowed to have your own personal beliefs about things. And now, if you thought that one was bad, listen to this one from The Nation. Charlie Kirk was an unrepentant racist, transphobe, homophobe, and misogynist who often wrapped his bigotry in Bible verses because there was no other way to pretend that it was morally correct. I wonder where you people at The Nation get your morals from. They have 1.1 million followers, by the way, and I suspect that they're probably going to be in a bit of a legal kerfluffle after putting up something like that. He had his views. He defended those views. It doesn't mean they were all right or anything else, but for them to put all of those meaningless buzzwords, do you guys still not get it? So if someone else, could you put it back up, The Nation one? So whoever picks up the mantle from Charlie, or whoever largely believes in Charlie's ideology, that means you're a racist, you're a transphobe, you're a homophobe, and you're a misogynist, and the Bible is just your excuse for all of those things. Like, do you see why, when Donald Trump said, they're really coming for you, I'm just standing in the way? You see how this all kind of does make sense? Let's talk about Chapter for a minute, and then we'll have a bit more on what the Democrats have been doing that perhaps created the conditions for someone to pull the trigger the way that they did.
If you or a loved one are on Medicare or turning 65 soon, you need to hear this. Medicare enrollment is complicated and misinformation is everywhere. The more confused you are, the easier it is for scammers to push you into overpriced plans that make them money while pretending they're unbiased. In fact, Trump's Department of Justice recently sued 3 of the biggest Medicare brokers in America for allegedly doing exactly that. And the victims? Everyday Americans like you. That's why I trust Chapter. Chapter's advisors make Medicare simple and always put you first. They listen carefully, compare every plan, and help you find the most savings. On average, they save people $1,100. And here's the best part. They'll never push you towards one plan over another. If you're already on the right plan, they'll tell you honestly instead of trying to switch you for their own gain. So take control of your Medicare coverage with guidance you can trust. Call Chapter today at 332-867-0207. Most people say they wish they'd called sooner.
Okay, here is a supercut of Democrats labeling Trump a fascist. And just remember, I know you guys don't believe this, but imagine you were one of these young people who's at a school and your teachers are telling you all of these things and you're getting that message from mainstream media and everything else, and it's over and over again. The world's coming to an end because of climate change. Donald Trump's a fascist. Systemic racism is here. Now they've also got you confused about whether your genitals match your gender. All of these things. And then you can just sort of see the stew that leads to something like this. Take a look.
Let me ask you tonight, do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do.
This is what kicking the out of fascism looks like.
Try to prevent
the spread of the lawlessness and the fascist chaos that's been unleashed against us.
So when we say Donald Trump is a fascist, fascism, a huge component of fascism is uniting racism, bigotry, a form of racist nationalism.
We are now living in a fascist dictatorship.
We are worried about potential rise of fascism in this country. We're worried about our democracy falling to an authoritarian and potentially fascist form of government.
Not only to roll over to Donald Trump's will, but to roll over our democracy and allow him to take over this country as a fascist dictator.
When fascism isn't just coming, it's already here.
The former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, said, "No one has ever been more dangerous to this country than Donald Trump, and he is a fascist to his core."
Man, I mean, that man could be vice president right now. Do you realize how insane, how close to the edge of the abyss that we actually got? Now, there you have mainstream media people, you have politicians. We know that there was a huge, we'll have more on this in a second, but a huge amount of this is being sparked online where they say the worst of all things about Charlie and Ben and me and Bill Maher, like you're never liberal enough for the libs, right? You're never left enough for these people. But again, what if you were being hit with that information all the time, what would you do? I also want to make a point about, I call a lot of these people socialists all the time. They are socialists. Remember years ago, they were Democrat socialists. And I kept saying, well, one day they'll just drop the Democrat part. And they have now, right? Mamdani is a socialist. Bernie Sanders doesn't have a problem saying that he's a socialist. They'll fully say they're communists and Marxists now too. There's a fundamental difference when we're saying, oh, these people are socialists, right? Like it is what it is and they acknowledge it versus these people are Nazis when they don't identify as Nazis and don't behave like Nazis. So again, there is no symmetry between the way the two sides behave. Now, we're going to show you another compilation in just a sec, but I want to start with this, because this is a video from, I think, about 2 years ago. It is The View. We're doing The View. It's a Monday, real quick. I think it's our only clip of The View today. Joy Behar talking about a Turning Point USA, saying that Charlie invited neo-Nazis there. Watch this, and then I'll explain how profoundly absurd this is.
There were out there, neo-Nazis were in the front of out there in front of the conference with anti-Semitic slurs and, the Nazi swastika and a picture of a so-called Jewish person with exaggerated features, just like...
Joy, okay, she goes on and on there. She said they showed up out there. The implication is that they showed up, and she muddled her words as she said it. The implication being that, neo-Nazis showed up to a Turning Point event. Except they weren't allowed in. They were not brought on stage as speakers. Were there people with swastikas and bad caricatures of people and who probably have, all sorts of odious views outside protesting? This is the irony. They were protesting Charlie and they were protesting Turning Point because he was not allowing them in the movement. A few years ago when I was still doing events for Turning Point, I just haven't over the last couple of years because life changed and got busy and I just don't travel as much as I used to for these like one-off gigs. But when I was doing a lot of the college events for Turning Point, there was a period where the neo-Nazi contingent, they were sending people to our Turning Point events. I would always do the same thing Charlie did, which was you invite them to argue with me first, which once you do that, most of them kind of just scour into the shadows. But the point is, they were not part of Turning Point. They were going to Turning Point events to attack Turning Point. Joyless. Here's a compilation of mainstream media labeling MAGA as Nazis. This was not hard to come up with.
Our only opportunity, our only chance to save our democracy is to fight fire with fire right now. So, like we're in a war right now to save this country, and so you have to be willing to do whatever is necessary in order to save the country.
We have to start calling his supporters racist as well. That MAGA symbol has come to represent something. It is the new Nazi symbol. It is the new hood.
Because they're not a party. Right? They're Sinn Féin to the IRA. They're the PLO to Hamas. They're a dime store front for a terrorist movement.
The Republican Party is basically a domestic terrorist cell at this point, and they should be treated as such.
There are elements of the GOP that are starting to look like the jihadists.
You get up in the morning and you doom scroll through things, and
Although I will say this, the last few days you woke up thinking there might be news. Just saying. There will be news sometime, just so you know, there will be news.
Violence doesn't come from Democrats, just to be clear. I mean, obviously anyone can be a criminal, but it is MAGA. It's specifically MAGA faction.
So again, I mean, I know this is old hat to a lot of you, but look what the rhetoric of these people does. It creates conditions for awful things to happen. I mean, the sickest of all of those is Tim Walz, and that one's from, what, 3 weeks ago or something, where he was hoping, you doom scroll, and we thought Trump was dead for a minute, and he will be dead soon enough. This is a man who was almost assassinated about a year and a half ago. Like, it's absolutely deranged. Now, here is a super cut of Pelosi, AOC, Schumer, and Biden being total hypocrites and claiming that it is the right who pushes violence.
People don't have any intention of saying something that's going to lead to something dangerous, but we cannot take responsibility for the minds that are out there and how they hear it.
Right-wing incitement of violence against trans Americans in this country because they cannot let go of this obsession with fixating violence and inciting violence against trans and LGBT people, in addition to immigrants, in addition to women of color.
The bottom line is this is a time that all Americans should come together. Coming together is what we ought to be doing, not pointing fingers of blame.
I want to speak to you tonight about the need for us to lower the temperature in our politics. And to remember, while we may disagree, we are not enemies. We're neighbors. We're friends, co-workers, citizens, and most importantly, we're fellow Americans. Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. Trump and the extreme MAGA Republicans quote a clear and present danger to our democracy.
Okay, so we all know the rhetoric with these people. On one hand, it's we're tolerant and diverse, and blah blah blah, and then every chance they get, consistently, it is to say the worst possible things about groups of people. And I hate to tell you guys, but you and I are in those groups of people. That's one thing. Joseph just reminded me, and we will try to find video of this, but I did a Turning Point event at Arizona State University with Michael Shermer. This has got to be around 2018, 2019. And there was a self-avowed trans Nazi in the crowd, because I asked the crowd jokingly, I used to go on stage and I'd ask people, how many liberals are here? And a few people applaud. And how many libertarians? And a lot of people. How many conservatives? A lot of people applaud. And then I would say, how many Nazis are here? And usually just crickets, and then people laugh. But one time I said at this Arizona State thing, it was a Turning Point event, I said, how many Nazis are here? And a woman, what appeared to be a woman, was clapping in the background. I said, well, that's, and then the crowd kind of laughed, and then it got very awkward. And I said, well, you know what, we'll take your question first. And that's what Michael Shermer and I did. And she went on crazy Holocaust, went on crazy Holocaust denial stuff and everything else. It was 2015. All right, we're gonna try to find some video of that. Anyway, when you ramp up the rhetoric, and I'll do a little mea culpa here. Have we all been guilty in some sense? And I mean this for literally everybody. Do we use buzzwords and blah, blah? Have we all been guilty some sense of some of this stuff? Sure. But again, it is not symmetrical. What the left has done to demonize all of us is way, way worse. So on Friday, I was on Piers Morgan's show. It was an hour-long tribute to Charlie. And when I agreed to do it, I'm not that interested in doing Piers' show that much anymore, because I find it just turns into a shout fest. But when they asked me to do it for Charlie, I agreed to do it. And then I saw that my old boss, Cenk of the Young Turks, was going to be on. And I was ready to bring receipts. You know, I always tell you guys, I like when people bring receipts. When Ted Cruz goes on The View and pulls out a paper and explains why they're a bunch of liars, when people actually read their own words back to them. So we started doing the show, and Cenk was being all kumbaya and oh my God, and Trump's not Hitler and all of these things, and Charlie wasn't Hitler and everything. So I was ready, because it is nice if... I don't know what's in this guy's heart. I don't think a lot of good stuff, but it is nice for people to take that moment and you know, have a little contrition and everything. But you have to kind of admit perhaps that you were part of the problem. So to get up there and say, well, now we all want peace, and oh my God, this is such a tragedy. I just read some of his own video titles back to him, and it went basically as well as you would expect. Seems to me that everyone agrees that Donald Trump is not Hitler and his supporters are not Nazis. So with that in mind, I'd like to read some other headlines. These are video titles from Cenk's channel. And if in the spirit of reconciliation, maybe he wants to delete these things. Trump cuts anti-Nazi program. Trump spreading Nazi propaganda. Nazis encouraged by Trump's Charlottesville response. Trump defends Nazis, very fine people. That is the biggest political hoax ever. Trump retweets a neo-Nazi again. Trump disappoints neo-Nazi supporters. So these things don't come out of nowhere. I only blame one person at the end of the day for these murders, which is the crazy person who does the murders. But pretending that what is wildly asymmetrical, I think I have laid that out with evidence here, pretending that it's symmetrical is deeply, deeply dangerous. Okay, so if you want to watch the full segment, you can watch it on our channel. He ends up screaming at me to shut up. He calls me a monster, claims that I want to get him killed, even though literally all I did was just read his own titles back to him. Joseph's pointing out right now that the Young Turks have not removed any of those videos or changed the titles. Now, here's another piece that I pointed out on that show, which is that in 2018, Charlie was at a breakfast in Philadelphia and he got accosted by a bunch of Antifa people. This was Cenk's response to that, which is quite chilling in light of what's happened now.
It allows for easy martyrdom for these guys, and they don't deserve it. But I do also want to point out, as they're in the middle of crying now, although Charlie was smiling ear to ear throughout the entire video, thinking, yes, I'm now the victim, and I'll get to claim that my rights have been abridged.
Donald Trump said there were very good people on the Nazi side in Charlottesville when they said the Jews will not replace us. And Donald Trump used a Hitler quote about poisoning the blood of our nation. So, is it right to support a candidate that supports Nazis? Is it right or not? Yes or no answer, at least, Stefanik. Do you support Nazis? Because a guy that you support had dinner with Nazis, said Nazis were very good people, and used Nazi quotes. Yes or no, at least, Stefanik? Yes or no?
God, all right, first off, I just want to say, for 7 or something years after I left the Young Turks, even though they've done dozens of videos about me, you guys know I never was doing videos about this guy. Hopefully this is the last time I ever have to do it again. But how, not only does he have the videos up there calling where it's all Trump's Hitler, blah, blah, blah. And then I also read him 10 headlines of what he said about Charlie. But then the idea that Charlie wanted to be a martyr, that's what he said. It's easy martyrdom, and then Charlie can be the victim. Well, martyrdom is when you're killed for your political beliefs. And do you think Charlie wanted to die? I mean, that's what you're saying. But and then you just create this caricature of these people. And then someone goes out and does your dirty work. And that is deeply disturbing. And also the fact that he's still, even in the Piers video from a couple of days ago, still pushing the very fine people hoax, all of the Nazi titles and all of that. Now I want to get this to, okay, but you could say, okay, fine, everyone's allowed their opinion about people, right? You can just say all these bad things about people and whatever. It is what it is. It all goes into the ether. It's a wash at the end. Both sides do it. You can do all of that. Okay, that maybe that's true to some extent. What you cannot do in the United States is call directly for violence to a person or a group of people. However, Cenk's nephew, this guy Hasan Piker, who is the #1 streamer on Twitch, who is I would say a crazed socialist, lefty, communist, Marxist, whatever you want to call him, those are his political beliefs. I don't think he would argue, is he a socialist or a Marxist or a communist? Yeah, those are the things he believes in. And again, the biggest streamer on Twitch, this guy has an insane amount of young people watching him. Here he is, and this is a violation of the First Amendment of the United States, and he's doing it on Twitch, the #1 streamer, calling on his viewers to kill right-wingers.
I'm sick and tired of it. Left-wingers, liberals, you need to be showing your opponent's guts on there, okay? You need to be gutting them. You need to be shanking these motherfuckers and letting their intestines just ride on stage. What the is this shit, man? Slice them up. Slice them and dice them. What the
Kill them. Kill those motherfuckers and murder those motherfuckers in the street. Let the streets soak in their red capitalist bloods, dude.
Their red capitalist bloods. You know, when I worked at the Young Turks, he was harassing all of the girls there that work there. And their response to that was that they just, instead of getting rid of him or punishing him in any way, they just had him work from home, which most people apparently want to work from home post-COVID. He's an absolutely disgusting human being. I don't believe that anyone should harm him or anything else. I don't want anyone to gut him. I don't want to see his guts on the street, and I don't want his blood rushing all over the place. But he is the #1 streamer on Twitch. So if you have a kid that is on Twitch, you think they're on there just playing video games or watching video games or whatever the high hells. I've never even been on Twitch. I don't even know exactly what's going on there. But video games ain't what they used to be. I can promise you that much. You might want to think about that. Why is your kid on Twitch? And I would say for lawyers out there, you might want to look into that, because someone like him, who is so influential amongst this now hyper radicalized base of Marxist, genderqueer, progressive people, well, one of their #1 thought leaders is kill these people, murder them, blood in the streets. It's illegal, and it certainly should be against, well, it certainly is against Twitch's terms of service, but they are letting him on here. And by the way, if you don't think it is dangerous, someone like him, well, look at this picture. There he is with, just a couple days ago, the new mayor of New York City's best friend. This is going to be great. So Mamdani is out there with him. So might I offer if there are any journalists out there, still, there's got to be somebody somewhere, might I offer a suggestion if you want to go viral? How about today, when Mamdani does whatever press conference he's doing or whatever fake little LARPing thing that he's up to with his lo-fi music and his soft lens, how about you ask him, do you condemn totally and will you disassociate from Hasan Piker, who is on camera as the #1 streamer on Twitch, publicly calling for the murder of people who believe in capitalism? We just showed you the video right there. Again, these things are not symmetrical. I know nobody's going to do it. The other thing they could always ask is, if you are such a great ally to the gays, does the mosque that you go to perform gay weddings? And if not, why are you part of such a bigoted organization? You can do that one too. I'm just offering people things to go viral if you want to get out there. But this is a huge problem right now, because this is not what's happening on the right. It doesn't mean that there aren't any bad apples. I've been talking about the fighting on the right. And Charlie, by the way, over the last 6 months or so, was one of the bulwarks of some of the craziness on the right. But the point is, if they're going to call for the violence of, these people believe in capitalism, whatever, we want their blood in the streets, and Charlie's an evil person, so he's allowed to be killed, or Ilhan Omar smiling as she talks about his death. I mean, they are just vile. But our side is better, and it is going to be very tough and incumbent on us to figure out where our better angels are. I saw this video. I thought this was quite nice. You might argue it was a stunt, but I thought it was really nice. Look at this from Eric Daughtry. Just in, Senator Ted Cruz personally removes graffiti on the side of a highway that said, "Fuck Charlie Kirk," declares Texans don't have to look at this hateful garbage anymore. Look, I know Cruz doing it himself might come off as a little bit of a stunt. I know Senator Cruz quite well. He's a good human being. And I think actually him doing it, in some case it isn't a stunt. It's like, you know what, I will go out there and do it. I know someone else can do it. I know there's a staff member or an employee of the city or somebody can go out there and do it, but I will go do it. I will show that I am part of this. And I think that is the spirit of cleaning this horrible situation up, in this case, quite literally. That's the spirit that has to motivate us right now. Here's Tulsi Gabbard, who again wasn't even, I don't even know that she's a Republican right now. I know she's not a Democrat, but this is somebody that 4 or 5 years ago had wildly opposing views to Charlie Kirk, wildly opposing views. But here she is at the Kennedy Center last night. There was a prayer vigil and a service. It was jam-packed, talking about Charlie and his mission and what motivated him.
In the book of Corinthians, Paul said, "Therefore we are always of good courage, and know that while we are at home in the body, we are absent from the Lord. We are of good courage, I say, and prefer to rather be absent from the body and be home with the Lord." Ultimately, for every one of us, the time that we have in this world is temporary. Our time will come, sooner or later. And so the critical question that we have for ourselves is, whatever time we have, What are we doing with it? How are we making the most of every day that we have? Charlie Kirk, every single day, carried out his mission, motivated by his faith in Jesus Christ and his unwavering dedication to defending our God-given freedoms enshrined in our Constitution and Bill of Rights.
Now, again, this is someone who still, to this moment right now, I have no doubt, had different political views than Charlie. Let's say on abortion would be an easy one. They definitely would not agree completely. But note, I watched the full thing, the full speech. She didn't have to go up there and say, you know, I had different opinions about Charlie, but he shouldn't be killed, because that's all baked in. That's all baked into what America is, that we are going to be different and think different things and have different beliefs and everything else. But to the backdrop of those two beautiful flags behind Tulsi, what's the thing that brings us all together? It's respect for this country, for your neighbors, and we are ready to throw it away because there, as we've illustrated here, whether it is the former man who wanted to be vice president, basically celebrating the fact that Donald Trump might have died one weekend, or Kamala calling him a fascist, or all of the horrible things they said about Charlie, or a Twitch streamer who's literally calling for people to be murdered, or the host of what was once a huge online show on the left, thankfully it's not as successful anymore, the Young Turks, relentlessly calling everyone a Nazi. You create the conditions for horrible things to happen. Again, I only blame the person who pulled the trigger, but perhaps before you all say kumbaya, you might want a little mea culpa. Boy, I had a little something to do with some of this. And what was Charlie really about? What Charlie really was about was going into places where it wasn't that comfortable to talk to people who he knew disagreed with him and tell them what he believed. Here he went on the Whatever podcast. I've been on this podcast. It's basically one guy who brings in a bunch of girls that are all like cam girls and e-girls and porn actresses and everything else. And he sort of just like berates them. I actually didn't love being on the show that much. It felt kind of thin to me. But here's Charlie going on that show. He's surrounded by, I don't know, it's usually a huge table, about 8 girls who are, again, at one layer or another in porn business. And here he is talking about perhaps what he thinks might be a better alternative for them.
Thank you guys for a respectful conversation, even though we see things very differently. And if you're engaged in the creation of that content, I think God has a better plan for you. I know that might sound preachy and not what you want to hear, but maybe you'll have an encounter with God, and Jesus loves all of you, and he can transform your life. He transformed my life, and every day is a new day, and it's a hopeful, beautiful life ahead of you. And God loves every single one of us. We're all sinners, and Jesus died.
I mean, you've definitely been the most respectful one that I've seen.
Well, thank you. That's very kind, and I can tell you it's not me. If it was me, I'd be yelling and screaming. It's the Holy Spirit. It really is. I know it might sound silly, it might sound cliche, but Jesus has gone to work on my life. And so God bless you guys. Thank you for a great discussion.
Charlie, thank you for coming.
That's Charlie, right? Notice he didn't say you're all horrible and you're a bunch of whores and you should be jailed, or I don't like you because of your sexuality or your line of work or anything else. He said we had a conversation with difference of opinions, and maybe there'll be a force that will move you differently. He didn't say this should be illegal or anything. Like, he was really trying his best to show people something that he thought was right without having to force them to do that. And what that did, and why I think the country is so fundamentally different over the last 4 days, is he then woke up young people to at least think about things a little bit differently. So you have all radical teachers and all of the things that you're doing online all day that are giving you one thing, one very hysterical thing all the time. And Charlie just tried it another way, a more thoughtful way, and that actually brought young people over there. And that's actually incredible. And here's RFK Jr. talking about how Charlie affected his 17-year-old niece.
A 17-year-old niece left for Europe to go to college. And while she was packing, her mother, Amaryllis, my daughter-in-law, noticed that she had put a Bible in her suitcase. And Amaryllis was curious about it. And she asked her, and Zoe said to her, I want to live like Charlie Kirk.
Now that's Bobby Kennedy, a man who a year and a half ago was running as a Democrat, a man who I brought on the show the first time and we argued about affirmative action, someone that's absolutely pro-choice, who probably disagree. I'm guessing he's or he's against the death penalty. I mean, he and Charlie, one without question, had huge political divides, just like Bobby Kennedy has with Donald Trump, but they're coming together under the banner of America. And that's why he can stand up there and be proud to say that his daughter, or his niece, 17-year-old niece, was affected by this man. And whether the 17-year-old niece, I think what Bobby would say, I don't want to put words in his mouth exactly, but I think what he would say is, if my 17-year-old niece grows up to think the things that Charlie believed, even if they're different than the things I believed, that would be pretty good. I thought this was pretty great as we're getting to the close here. This is pretty heartwarming. This is a 14-year-old by the name of Bryson Levy. And here he is talking about how Charlie Kirk was his idol.
Young man, you want to say why you're here, what Charlie Kirk meant to you?
He was my idol. Like, I remember watching his videos, wanting to be like him. Like, I would just see the way he would debate, and he was stayed calm while the left was just yelling at him, and he was just so nice about it. And then they hated him so much because he knew he was right, but they just didn't want to admit it. So they ended up hating him, and they just killed him for it.
What's your name? How old are you?
I'm Bryson Levy. I'm 14.
Man, God bless you. Where are you from?
I'm from here, Oakton.
Man, I pray a blessing on Bryson.
All right, first off, Bryson, when you're out of high school, you want an internship, you got it. That's number one. Number two, that's the spirit, right? That's the spirit that Charlie, it's not even just the spirit, it's the opportunity he gave for young people to think for themselves. All of these kids who had been brainwashed by all of this backwards stuff. And then Charlie was like, you want to think about this a little bit differently? Now, again, Charlie did it from his own unique religious perspective, but he didn't demand that everyone convert or be exactly like him in sort of the spiritual sense. He was saying, this is what works for me and this is how it fits with America. And because it was so unique, a little sanity was so unique in a time of craziness, you've got 14-year-olds right there. I thought Charlie was a racist, right? There's all those headlines on the Young Turks channel right now about what a racist Donald Trump and Charlie Kirk are. And there you have a young 14-year-old who's pretty freaking spectacular, saying that he was his hero. Pretty great. So where does this all leave us? Well, Charlie will be getting the unfortunately posthumous Medal of Freedom from President Trump.
Actually, young people will live on. I'm pleased to announce that I will soon be awarding Charlie Kirk posthumously the Presidential Medal of Freedom. The date of the ceremony will be announced, and I can only guarantee you one thing, that we will have a very big crowd. Very, very big.
Yeah, so Charlie will get the Medal of Freedom. There is also going to be a massive, massive rally in Arizona next Sunday. I'll be there, I'm sure. All the usual cast of characters are going to be there to honor and celebrate Charlie's life. I would also say, I don't know if anyone has said this publicly yet. I'm sure some people are sort of angling towards it. But how about September 10th becomes Charlie Kirk Day in America, right? We have other days that are important to all of us. How about September 10th, which I know to the backdrop of September 11th, and it's right after Labor Day. The timing's probably not great, but there's something happening in this country because of this man's spirit. His wife, Erika Kirk, gave without question, was the most difficult speech of her life. She went into Charlie's studio in Arizona. I have sat at that desk with him in that chair and all of those things. And she talked a bit about her husband and what now has been unleashed in light of his murder.
The evildoers responsible for my husband's assassination have no idea what they have done. They killed Charlie because he preached a message of patriotism, faith, and of God's merciful love. But they should all know this. If you thought that my husband's mission was powerful before, you have no idea. You have no idea what you just have unleashed across this entire country. In this world, you have no idea. You have no idea the fire that you have ignited within this wife The cries of this widow will echo around the world like a battle cry. To everyone listening tonight across America, the movement my husband built will not die. It won't. I refuse to let that happen. It will not die. All of us will refuse to let that happen. No one will ever forget my husband's name, and I will make sure of it.
I mean, it's impossibly difficult to watch, and her resolve to the backdrop of the pain and everything else, and I'm sure it's not even fully set in yet. You know, what I've realized over the last couple of days is I sort of hit this at the top, but to have to like narrate all of this. You know, I was on air with Russell Brand for our Actual Friends podcast as we found out Charlie got shot. We didn't know he was murdered yet, and just have to talk it out on air is just like a crazy theory. I was on Larry Kudlow later that day, and we also still at that point didn't know that he was dead. And as I was live on Fox Business, I saw out of the corner of my eye a text from Phoenix saying that he was actually dead. And I was like, oh my God, am I about to say that now on television? Like, it's all so crazy, but that's completely insignificant compared to the resolve of his wife. And she's completely right. They have now unleashed something that hopefully can fix the country. You know, it's like, man, we've been going so in the wrong direction for so long with all of the woke stuff. We got the president we need. We fixed so much of the political stuff when we fixed the border and the trade deals and blah, blah, blah. We've done so much, but now there's some other thing that needs to be that needs to be fixed and needs to be focused on. Here's a bit more from Erika.
And I love knowing that one of his mottos was never surrender. So I want to tell you that we'll never surrender. We never will. Ever. Ever. Our campus tour this fall will continue. There will be even more tours in the years to come. America Fest here in Phoenix this December will go on. It will be greater than ever. The radio and podcast show that he was so proud of will go on. And in a world filled with chaos, doubt, and uncertainty, my husband's voice will remain. And it will ring out louder and more clearly than ever. And his wisdom will endure.
It's just unimaginable. I mean, she doesn't have a husband. Her kids don't have a father anymore. But they are not going to stop. And I thought Ben on his show I thought he said this quite well about what I think he's talking about his own responsibility, but he's really talking about all of us.
Now, it's still up to us. I saw a lot of rumors online today. I was made aware of this by my team that I canceled some sort of college tour. That's bull. I saw those rumors. They are false. I will be coming to college campuses, many of them this year. So will we all, I am sure, because we're Americans and we're not going to be deterred. Charlie's voice is not silent. We're going to pick up that blood-stained microphone where Charlie left it. And to those who would intimidate, who would seek to stop us, who would seek to end free discussion, who believe that they have ownership over public spaces and can violently threaten and kill people who speak freely, we are not going to stop. And I have two words. You. We will not stop telling the truth. We will never stop telling the truth. We will never stop debating and discussing. We will never stop standing up for what America is and for what she should be. And we will never let Charlie Kirk's voice die.
Well said, my friend. You know, for years, probably literally 10 years, Ben and I have had a running joke that one day I was going to be able to get him to curse on camera. Well, he did it, I think, in probably the most perfect moment that he could have ever done that. So I want to connect this as we get to the close here. I want to connect this to the top where we had Ben and Bill Maher talking about what has happened here and the false cries of racism and everyone's Hitler and everything else. Here they got into a slight disagreement, will not surprise you, as Ben Shapiro obviously is an Orthodox Jew, Bill Maher is an atheist. They started talking about where people get their values, and I thought this was quite interesting.
Here's the real question. If the sort of reasonable morality that you espouse is universal, then why is it not even remotely universal on planet Earth? Okay, it is only found in Christian-based societies. You will not find it unless it was grafted on later by, us conquering someplace.
Christian-based? You saying this with the yarmulke on?
Yes, because because Christians believe the first half of the Bible, which is
I'm
mine.
working on them, Bill. I'm working on
Well,
them.
as you know, this is the point where I remind all Christians first of all, I appreciate all the attempts to convert me, and yes, you get infinity heaven points if you're the one who does it, is what I have heard.
Okay, so Ben even doing it with a sense of humor right there. Like, first off, okay, so a lot here. Bill, I think, is slightly confused about what Christian societies are. What's his name? Richard Dawkins, who's one of the most well-known atheists on the planet. He even, over the last couple of years, has come around and said, boy, he's lucky that he lives in a Christian society. It does not mean you have to be Christian. It does not mean you have to fully believe in all the tenets of Christianity. But yes, Bill, a guy with a yarmulke, unless they want to live in Israel, which is the most hated place by all the crazy lunatics, they want to live in a Christian society. That's where you will find freedom. That's where minorities and individual rights will be respected and all of those things. So it's kind of funny. You have I'm not even sure who the other guest was, but there he was basically like, I'll convert Ben. And Ben's like, yeah, good luck with that. And then you have the atheist, I think, being slightly confused about why a Jew would want to live in a Christian society. And I think so it's kind of funny because Charlie loved to defend, well, not only did Charlie defend Israel and Judaism and Judeo-Christian values as a Christian, but now you have Ben, an Orthodox Jew, defending Christianity. And what is the common point, whichever side of that debate you might be on religiously? It's freedom in America and individual rights. And that's the thing that we have to wrap ourselves around. So I thought this was quite beautiful. My father-in-law, who still lives in New York City, although hopefully not much longer, he went to Roosevelt Island over the weekend and he sent me this picture and I thought it was quite perfect. This is an engraving on a statue in Roosevelt Island, obviously from Franklin Roosevelt. In the future days, which we seek to make secure, we look forward to a world founded upon 4 essential human freedoms. The first is freedom of speech and expression everywhere in the world. The second is freedom of every person to worship God in his own way everywhere in the world. The third is freedom from want everywhere in the world. The fourth is freedom from fear anywhere in the world. That is no vision of a distant millennium. It is a definite basis for a kind of world attainable in our own time and generation. Franklin D. Roosevelt, January 6th, 1941. And you know what, guys? I don't know that we can do it all over the world. And I know there's an awful lot of countries run by a lot of theocratic maniacs who don't want it for us or their own people. But in the United States of America, we can protect free speech. In the United States of America, we can allow you to worship as you wish. We can do the best we can to make you free from fear and want. That's what we can and have done here, and that's why the Jew and the Christian in this case can come together and say this is the damn best place for both of us. That is the exchange. One more, we'll close out with Charlie.
I'm just flesh and bone, but more importantly, I'm a soul. And that soul is accountable to one being. I mean, I've had an unbelievably blessed life. Been doing this now, it'll be 12 years on June 5th.
Such a young man to do it.
So young.
Yeah, so praise God. I mean, I've been all across the world. I've met with world leaders. I've flown in Air Force One, got to know a president. I have an amazing family, the podcast, Turning Point USA, all that stuff. And so you experience that and you're like, what actually matters? What matters is your relationship with the divine, your relationship with your family, your kids, and maybe a close collection of friends, and your relationship with the truth.
And that's the guy that every time they say, oh, he shouldn't have been killed, a certain set of people have to say, but I didn't agree with everything he said, but he shouldn't be killed. It's like, what actually was the most controversial thing he said? Was he going to force you by sword to convert to Christianity? Was he going to make it so that black people and white people would have different laws to live by? Or anything else, and you all know the actual answer to that. So they feared him because he told the truth. I will continue my best to do it. We've got a post-game show in 30 seconds, rubinreport.locals.com. Oh, and I also should remember, this is this is a very minor footnote. But we were going to relaunch Copal today. It is back in stock in the United States at the warehouse, ready to go. A lot of you have been asking. We thought that relaunching it today just felt too soon and raw and everything else. So we're going to wait 1 week from today. It will be available again. That's a total sidebar, which is way less important than any of this. I thank you guys for watching. Hopefully over the course of the next week and everything else, we can get back to some of the funnier stuff and all that. But I know you're all feeling what I feel, and it's important to do it this way. So appreciate you watching Post Game Show in 30 seconds. Thanks.